On Monday, Paul Hahn from Wisconsin had to go to court. The court was in Lausanne, Switzerland. But he committed no crime. He was there to be encouraged or accused, whichever way you want to look at it, of winning the gold medal for all-around men's gymnastics improperly. 2 hours after the medal ceremony, there was a protest by the Korean Olympic Committee. They said that Yang Tae-young had actually won because of a scoring error on the parallel bars. But the events of that August 20 evening was something that you wouldn't believe. It was very dramatic. Paul Hahn, during his vault event, his first event of the evening, almost landed in the laps of the judges. But that wasn't the only problem that evening. Other gymnasts had bobbles here, falls there. It was a night of drama. And as the scores were tallied up, Paul Hahn's score ended up being the highest of all scores, and he won the gold. There were mistakes made, yes. 3 judges were fired from the Olympic competition. The protests were legitimate, but they were late. But in all this, keep in mind that Paul Hahn had done nothing wrong. Yet he was the one being accused of falsely taking the gold medal away from the Olympics. He didn't steal it. He didn't hold a gun and say, "Give me my gold medal." He did nothing wrong. The errors that were created were by the judges. The Koreans filed a protest, and they wrote a letter to Paul Hahn and said, "Would you please return the medal out of fairness and good sportsmanship?" How's that fair for Paul Hahn? Life is unfair. If I were to ask you to raise your hand, we could probably all say there have been moments in our lives that have been unfair. 2 weeks ago, we were driving across country, moving from Nevada to Arkansas. It's hard to move anyway, but here we are making a 2,000-mile trip by car, and only 350 miles into the trip, in the Nevada desert, at 10 o'clock at night, the car I was driving overheats and blows a head gasket at Area 51. How do you dispose of a car? What do you do with this car in the middle of the desert? I had already purchased a house and it was under construction. It was supposed to be finished within about 2 to 3 weeks of us arriving. So we said, no problem. We would stay in temporary housing. And this temporary housing had some bedrooms and bathrooms. Great, but no kitchen. But we said 2 or 3 weeks we can eat McDonald's or Pizza Hut or something like that, and we'll be all right. Construction delays made that 3 months. Having no kitchen was just the least of the problems of this place. We lost power in one of the bedrooms, no light whatsoever. So climbing up into the attic space to try to find what was wrong with the electricity, the electrical wiring in the place, I fell off the ladder, landing flat on my back on a concrete floor. Ouch. First 3 months. In the 2 years of being here, I've lost my hearing for about a year's time. Couldn't hear. My wife spent the last 6 months in an ankle brace because she chipped and sprained her ankle. Her car has been rear-ended twice in 2 years, each time sitting at a stoplight. We've been the victim of criminal fraud twice, the latest of which was just a week ago. We've also been burglarized. Now, I'm a Christian, and I love God with all my life, and the core of my being says, God is the most important thing in all of my life. But I started asking some questions. Questions that went like this. What did I do to deserve this? Am I defective? What have I done wrong? What's wrong with me? Am I out of God's will? What kind of husband and father would put his family through these kind of things like this? Is God trying to tell me something here? Those are troubling questions. but they were real for me. And I believe there's someone here also that's probably going through similar incidences in their lives. Things that are shaking them to the core of their existence and saying and asking these very same questions. What's wrong with me? What did I do to deserve this? Life is full of troubles. There are days of heartache as well as days of joy. For 5 years, I worked at Health South Rehabilitation Hospital in Reno as a chaplain. And every hospital bed there, I had the whole hospital as chaplain as my responsibility. And every bed there was a story of tragedy and suffering. We specialized in strokes and closed-head injuries. I saw people who had come to the area to take a vacation, to go skiing at Lake Tahoe. But in their skiing, they skied into a tree. And now they can't talk anymore because of the closed-head injury. There was a young man, I remember vividly, he was maybe 19 years old. He and his friends had built some ramps to go snowboarding on. And these ramps in the extreme skiing fashion were to jump Mount Rose Highway. And every one of them made the jump. But the last kid who did this, the kid I saw, as he started going on the hill to hit the ramp, got scared. Good thinking, just too late. And he tried to slow down, and by him slowing down, he didn't have the speed to make it over the highway. Thankfully, the best thing that could have happened to him, in that he hit the guardrail and not a truck going on the highway. There was a young man who was doing God's will. He and his church had gone on a mission trip to Mexico. And he had stayed a few days afterwards for a vacation time. 22, 23 years old. A man who knew God's word and loved God with all his heart and spirit and soul. And decided, after watching the cliff diving, he was a very athletic person, he'd try to cliff dive as well. He broke his neck and was a quadriplegic. And every one of those hospital beds had questions of me as a chaplain of saying, why? Why me? Why do I have to suffer like this? Why do I have to go through these kind of things? And as I worked there, I heard the answers that their loving friends had given them of them trying to answer that question of why. Here's some of the answers that I heard. Well, someone must have sinned. You've sinned, or someone has sinned, but someone must have sinned. Now, that's an easy scenario to picture when you're talking about maybe drunk drivers and automobile accidents. But I think about Florida. 4 hurricanes. Did Florida or someone in Florida sin? Well, yes. But was it such a sin that made 4 hurricanes hit Florida in about a 4 to 5 week time period? No. How about this one? God has a purpose and some hidden knowledge we don't have. I heard this one while I was standing beside the bed of an 8-year-old little girl whose family was just an incredibly Christian, great Christian family. And that little girl was in a coma, liver failure, waiting to die. And well-meaning people said to this family, well, God has a purpose in this. We just don't understand it yet. And they were dealing with the question of, when do I remove life support? God has a purpose in this? That kind of question says, that kind of statement says that God is some kind of capricious God looking to kill somebody. Just saying, where's my next victim now? We do suffer consequences because of bad decisions. But God is not looking to create a victim. That'd be a cruel God. Well, the other one I hated. Suffering is a test. Suffering is a test to see what you're made out of. This too portrays God as one who has a torture stick, looking to try to zap them and say, well, how well can you stand up? Are you really a good Christian? God is not the host of Fear Factor. This God can certainly not be any good.